Today, we are going to talk about the 5 safest neighborhoods you can find here in Kitchener, Ontario. And I can bet you can live in any of these 5 neighborhoods on any given day and you cannot go wrong, hearing from someone who has lived in Kitchener for a few years now. And if you do stick until the end of this video, I'll also share with you one of the most common mistakes that cost many first-time home buyers, and especially the ones who are moving from the Greater Toronto area or somewhere else into this region, a mistake that does cost them thousands of dollars when buying and selling a home here in Kitchener, Ontario. So stay tuned and let's get right into it. My name is Doon South. I'm a local real estate agent serving Kitchener and surrounding areas. I've helped many families with their move in and around Kitchener, Ontario, and majority of my clients do comprise of the first-time home buyers and the people who are moving from outside of the Kitchener-Waterloo region. So if you are one of those people and if you're looking for help with your move in and around Kitchener, Ontario, be sure to reach out. You can give me a call, shoot me a text, you can send me an email, or you can even schedule a Zoom call. All the info you will find right below in the description. I'll be more than happy to help you with your move in and around Kitchener, Ontario. So the first up on my list and the top of my list is Doon South, and this is the neighborhood that's highly desirable amongst many families, especially the ones who are moving from, let's say, Greater Toronto area to the Waterloo region. Now, one of the main reasons is the fact that Doon South is very close to Highway 401, literally a minute away from pretty much any part of this neighborhood. But at the same time, you have Doon South is one of those neighborhoods that also gives you a handful of options, and the variety and the diversity of real estate you find in Doon South is just amazing. Whether you have a budget of $500,000 or $600,000, where you can find some of those stacked or condominium townhomes that are 2 or 3 bedrooms, and all the way to, let's say, 1.5 million, where you can find a detached home sitting on a 50 feet wider lot. So the versatility of the real estate options in Doon South is amazing. And also, if you are someone, because many of my first-time home buyers come to me and say, Dharmik, ideally we don't want to go for something older than 25 or 30 years. Well, Doon South is going to be your answer in that case, because Doon South is that neighborhood where majority of the homes are built in the early 2000s to the present day. There is still some new build communities building by some of the builders in that neighborhood. So, if you are someone who want to stick to that 25 to 30 years at the most in terms of the age of real estate, you want to stick to Doon South because that'll give you a decent amount of options. In terms of the options for real estate, you are looking at 2 and 3 story townhomes, freehold townhomes. You have condominium townhomes as well, ranging from anywhere condo fee about 2 or more like a parcel fee, we call it, parcel of tied land, somewhere around $200 all the way to some as high as $400. So depending on your budget, you can find a decent amount of options. But then you have a whole range of detached homes, 2-story detached, that ranges anywhere from close to 2,000 square feet all the way to 3,500 square feet right here in this neighborhood. So like I said, the options you will find in this neighborhood for the real estate are just amazing. And those are the couple reasons I mentioned earlier: close proximity to highway, staying east, getting to 401 quick, and the second option being very newer construction, not as dated or not as mature of a neighborhood, is what attracts a lot of families to move to Doon South. This next up on my list is the Grand River South. Again, we are still on the east end of Kitchener. This neighborhood is a gem of a neighborhood. If you are looking for someone, homes built 2005 and later, well, Grand River South is again your answer. Homes mainly built in last 15 to 20 years in Grand River South, Lackner Woods, Idlewood. Now there is also a conservation area right at the heart of this neighborhood, Lackner Woods Conservation Area, which does attract a lot of people. So if you're especially a fan of being out and about in the nature, although we don't get as much of a time with the good weather here, but especially during those summer days, if you like being outdoorsy and adventurous, well, you will definitely enjoy living in this place. What you will also find, the dynamics of this Grand River South neighborhood, is you will find a lot of younger families with kids, and a lot of active families is what you will find in this neighborhood. Even with Doon South is the same thing. So, but the Grand River South, like I said again, with the age, that being within last 15 to 20 years, majority of the homes in that age range will actually result in the price point being slightly higher than average. And I've actually done a video recently about that, where we kind of looked into this neighborhood and what you can find within the particular range, all the way from $500,000 to $1 million. So feel free to check it out. But the point I'm trying to come to is Grand River South is again one of those neighborhoods where you will find a variety of options, but it will definitely ask you to maybe stretch your budget a bit. If you are working with a very tight entry-level budget, let's say 5 or 600,000, I can tell you this neighborhood will not give you as many of an option. You might have to go for a slightly older construction and might have to move to a slightly different neighborhood. But if you have a budget of, let's say, around 700 and up, well, Grand River South will give you a handful of options that ranges from 2-story townhomes that are freehold all the way to 2-story detached homes that are modern contemporary detached homes as well. And there is actually a new community that's coming up in this summer. So stay tuned for that. I'll actually cover that. But there's a Lackner Ridge. There's a whole condo town community being built, and there are some freehold townhome lots are coming up as well. So if you are interested in rather buying a pre-construction, again, Grand River South can be your answer. You are still staying to the east end of Kitchener, not too much inward. So if you do still have to get to Toronto or suburbs, or let's say Highway 401 to go further east, Grand River South is an ideal place because you will not be too far off from the highway and you can get yourself on Highway 401 in a matter of minutes. This next one on my list is Huron Park, and this is one of the favorites among many first-time homebuyers, and it's actually considered one of the safest neighborhoods you can find in Kitchener, especially for young families with kids going to school. There are some great schooling options right here in Huron Park. There's actually a newest Catholic school that was recently opened in the last couple of years right here at the heart of this neighborhood. But at the same time, what you will find is, and what attracts a lot of first-time homebuyers to Huron Park, is the fact that you will find a lot of homes in that price range of 600,000 all the way to close to $1 million and up. So, where you see majority of these first-time homebuyers fall within that 600 to let's say 850, you will find a handful of options right here in Huron Park. What we oftentimes see is a couple of neighborhoods I mentioned earlier, like Doon South and Grand River South. If you have a budget of let's say 650 or 7, you may not find as many options in a couple of these neighborhoods like Doon South and Grand River South. But Huron Park, on the other hand, will give you a decent amount of options as you approach, especially the high 6 and the low 7s. You can definitely find yourself a decent 2-story freehold townhome that is built in the early 2000s. So that's what attracts a lot of families, especially the people who are moving from GTA, because even if I were to talk about proximity to highway, it's not too bad actually. You could get yourself onto Highway 401 in about less than 10 minutes from pretty much any part of this neighborhood. So that's what attracts a lot of families, because still you're not too inward, you're not further west like some of the other neighborhoods on the west end of Kitchener, but just accessing Highway 401 if you do have to let's say commute. Nowadays we know a lot of people have to go to work on site a couple days a week. So if you have to do that, getting onto highway will be a breeze, although I hope you do end up finding work locally down the road, because commuting from Kitchener to let's say Toronto, it's a hassle for sure over a longer period of time. So but Huron Park is considered a good balance where if you are working with a tight budget, it's one of those neighborhoods that's still very desirable, very good neighborhood, not too old construction, but it will give you a decent amount of options and will not break your bank when finding your first home. So that's what I'll say about Huron Park, and that's why it's one of the top picks for many first-time homebuyers and is actually one of the safest neighborhoods you can find here in Kitchener, Ontario. This next one on my list is Forest Heights, which is the neighborhood located on the west end of Kitchener. You are a little bit further west into the Kitchener as we talk about Forest Heights. However, if you do have to get to the Greater Toronto area, Highway 8 will get you there in just about 10 to 15 minutes at the most. Now, this neighborhood is particularly interesting because many first-time homebuyers, let's say the ones who are moving from Greater Toronto area, find it very attractive because Forest Heights will give you a handful of options. If you're working with a budget of let's say 750 to 900, you can even say 7 will give you some options, but especially as you get into mid 7 into the high 7 and 8, well, that will give you a handful of options of those bungalow style homes. So if you are not a fan of those typical 2-story layouts where the space is basically split between the 2 levels, Forest Heights will give you a great amount of options with split level homes as well as the bungalow style homes that are situated on a larger size lot. So if you were to talk about a townhome, at the most you're looking at about 2,000 to 2,200 square feet of lot size. So there's not a big front and backyard. But if you talk about these bungalow style homes, oftentimes the average square footage of lot size in Forest Heights is well over sometimes around 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. So That's what attracts a lot of families. And many of these homes do already have a separate entrance basement that's oftentimes finished. So the benefit of a bungalow is, let's say if you have about 1,000 or 1,200 square feet on the same level where you have 3 bedroom, 1.5 washroom, and your kitchen and living and dining. But then, because it's a bungalow, you have about close to that same 1,000 square feet of living space below ground into the basement that sometimes this current owners are using as in-law suites or like a guest suite, something like that. And you can easily convert it into a legal duplex without having to spend too much money out of your pocket, because the separate entrance is oftentimes already there. The utilities are already there. The kitchen is already there sometimes, or there's some kitchenette that's already there. So what I'm trying to say is it does attract a lot of first-time home buyers, because they are like, hey, if I can rather extend my budget a little bit, but I can get a huge mortgage helper by buying into this bungalow that is equally good amount of space, but it gives me a rental opportunity right as I move in by, let's say, converting into a legal duplex, or like moving in yourself and doing some work down the road. So that's what does attract a lot of people. And like I said, it's the only downside you have to keep in mind is you will not find a lot of newer construction in this neighborhood, because majority of the homes in Forest Heights are built into the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. You will not find a lot of homes that are built in the last 25 to 30 years. So that's one thing you will have to settle with. But like I said, if the bones and the structure and the foundation, some of the key things that you need to look into the house are in good shape, well, you can still consider some of these options, because oftentimes, it's the structure, foundation, the bones, some of the key aspects that can, break your bank. Those are the things you need to look and make sure are in good shape when you go with some of these older homes. And obviously, the electrical, the plumbing, the mechanicals, all those things are up to the code, because, retrofitting that can sometimes cost quite a bit of money out of your pocket. So again, that's where the role of a real estate agent, and of course, if you're able to put in a condition for inspection, a home inspector come to play to educate you about your options and the cost involved with some of those work that might be needed. Forest Heights can be a great option if you're looking for a bungalow style home situated on larger lots and you're looking for a mortgage helper right as you move into your next home. This last neighborhood on my list is the hidden gem that's located on the west end of Kitchener, pretty much at the border of Kitchener and Waterloo. We are talking about Highland West here, and this is the neighborhood I currently live in, and we absolutely love it here. We moved in from Cambridge to this neighborhood here in Kitchener. I'll tell you a couple of things why Highland West is highly desirable among many first-time homebuyers and people moving from the Greater Toronto area. One is the variety of real estate options you find for every price point here in this neighborhood. So you get from anywhere from condo town and the stacked townhomes all the way to double garage detached homes right here in this neighborhood. And also the semi-detached homes, which are rare find these days because we don't see builders building them anymore, at least in the KWC. Well, this neighborhood will give you a handful of semi-detached options as well. But when it comes to the age of the real estate, you're looking about like 80s, 90s, a lot of construction in 90s, late 90s and the early 2000s. So you will not find anything after 2010 in majority of this neighborhood, although there are some townhome communities being built in this neighborhood and in the next neighborhood, which is Trustler West. But within the Highland West, if I were to talk about that, what people enjoy is the access to amenities in both Kitchener and Waterloo. When it comes to shopping, dining, getting your day-to-day items, you have a handful of options right pretty much at your close like doorstep or a short drive at the most. For example, if I have to go for shopping, I can go to Boardwalk Strip Plaza, which is literally a 5-minute drive from where I live, where they have like close to 50 stores in kind of street mall setting. So if you're living in Mississauga or some of the GTA suburbs, you will know places like Heartland Town Center. This can be like similar setup here in Highland West neighborhood. Like pretty much it's in Waterloo, but like a 5-minute drive from living in Highland West. So on the other hand, if you have to go for a mall, let's say Conestoga Mall and Fairview Park Mall, which will be around 15 to 20 minutes from any part of this neighborhood. So you see what I mean? Accessing the amenities both in Kitchener and Waterloo are very close. Even uptown Waterloo, which is kind of the heart of Waterloo, is about 10 minutes from any part of this neighborhood. Now, just keep in mind, if you do have to, however, commute to the back, like to Greater Toronto area and suburbs, well, that might be a bit of a stretch because now we are pretty much at the end of Kitchener and the border of Kitchener-Waterloo. So it will take you about close to 15 minutes and over to get you to Highway 401, and from there you will have to head. So just factor in an extra 15 to 20 minutes of commute versus living at the border of Cambridge-Kitchener in, let's say, somewhere along Doon South and some of those neighborhoods versus living in Highland West, which is, like I said, at the border of Kitchener-Waterloo. So that's just one thing that you gotta keep in mind, especially if you do have to commute. I would say stick to the east end of Kitchener. At the most, come to the center of Kitchener. The further west you move, nowadays with the increase in population, traffic is definitely getting more daunting. So I won't suggest that you move too much inward into the town. If you do still plan on commuting back to the Greater Toronto area more often than usual. But nonetheless, Highland West is definitely one of the desirable neighborhoods that I can say you can find yourself living in for you and your family, and is considered one of the safest neighborhoods here in Kitchener that you can find yourself to live in. Now, since you did stick until the end of this video, I did promise to share with you one of the common mistakes we see first-time homebuyers, especially the ones moving from the Greater Toronto area, making all the time. And that common mistake we see is working with a non-local real estate agent. So let's say if you're working with someone, a real estate agent that himself or herself lives in Mississauga, Brampton, or one of these Greater Toronto suburbs, well, they would have a good and fair bit of understanding or a high level understanding about the neighborhoods and the streets and the areas in Kitchener-Waterloo. But when it comes to a local real estate agent, where you can find added value, because we know this neighborhood, like I live in Kitchener, I lived in Cambridge, and I know Waterloo. So if you were to talk about any particular neighborhood and just say, you know what, Dharmik, tell me 5 good things and bad things about this neighborhood, well, I'll tell you right there and then. I would say do the same exercise with your realtor. Let's say if you plan on working with someone living outside of the region, and if you ask them about this neighborhood, well, I can tell you like that they won't be as confident and educated or knowledgeable in majority of the cases. Again, I'm not here to demean or belittle any real estate colleagues of mine, but I will be in the same shoes if someone was to ask me about, tell me the 5 good things about this neighborhood in Mississauga or Brampton. Well, I might have a high level overview from back in my days, but obviously the dynamics do change of this neighborhood over time. And if you were to ask me about this particular neighborhood in Mississauga, I would say you're better off working with a local real estate agent there, and maybe I can pair you up with someone there. But that's what point I'm trying to make. Oftentimes we see first-time homebuyer working with non-local agents will end up in a bad neighborhood. Like I have people like, families buy home in neighborhoods like that are not as desirable. I don't want to name those neighborhoods, but neighborhoods that I would not live on any given day, and they think they got a good deal on real estate because the price points are lower than some of the neighborhoods I mentioned. And guess what? You got yourself in a bad neighborhood. And I always say you can live in a good house and a bad neighborhood, bad area. But if you live in a good neighborhood and a bad house, well, it's still gonna give you a good return on investment on your money. So always go for the neighborhood first and the house second. Because if you end up in a bad house, you can still make some changes, spend some money, and make it better and get a good return on investment as long as it is located in a good neighborhood. But if it is the other way around, where you got a cosmetically good house ready to go, like turnkey home, which is finished with all the recent upgrades, but it's located in a bad neighborhood, guess what? You're not gonna get a good return on investment, because when you put that house for sale, people who are planning to buy your house might be better educated, better informed, and they will know this is not the best neighborhood, so we want to stay away from it altogether, and that will definitely affect your return on investment. And we see first-time homebuyers getting into this trap more often than usual, for sure. So if you're a first-time homebuyer and if you're moving from outside of the region, whether it's this region or anywhere else, let's say Hamilton, Brantford, some of these towns, well, it's so much important to find a local real estate agent who knows the neighborhoods, who knows the areas, the surroundings, the amenities, everything that a real estate agent is supposed to know, because that's an added value for you as a buyer. So do not undercut your own self by working with a non-local real estate professional. Now, if you did get some value out of this video, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and tap on the bell for notification so you are the first to learn about the current market in and around Kitchener, Ontario. Once again, whether you're thinking of moving in 9 days or 9 months, be sure to reach out. All the info is right below in the description. I'll be more than happy to help you and your family with your move in and around Kitchener, Ontario. Until next time, well, I hope to see you around town.